Okay guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. Alright guys, I'm back and it is Saturday, June 27th, and it's 10:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Hope everyone's doing well. As you can see, I'm having a very bad hair day. Not sure why I feel inclined to tell you that. It's not like you can't see it, but you know what? It happens. Alright, well, we're going to get into the news. I have just caught us up with the Q post and I have uploaded it. It's still processing. So while that's doing its thing, I'm going to record a second video with the news. All right. And in case you didn't hear it in case you didn't hear it in the last video, which you couldn't have yet, but by the time this is uploaded, maybe you have. I may not be posting tomorrow. I do need a day to do some research and do another few things that need to be done. But if there is breaking news, I'll do a video, or if Q posts, I'll do a video as well. So yeah, but if you don't see me, then Sunday is usually, a really slow news day and so forth. So I figure it's a safe day to take off, because through the week, as you know, there's always news. Oh, I hear cats crying. They were upset with me because I got a snack, which I didn't finish. It's a little seed bar, and I didn't give them their treats, but they've already had their treats, and, I don't want them to be 10-ton kitties. So, yeah. And I do have some people to thank here. I guess I better change this. I don't know why it still says the 25th, but it shouldn't. All right. And Kathy donated via coffee. Thank you very much, Kathy. I appreciate that. And picked up a couple new subscribers, and one, Happy Nerds, increased their pledge. So thank you. And we picked up Vicky K and Alicia, middle name A, and last name starts with R. All right. Well, thank you very much. Can't do this without you guys. And of course, donations are few and far between right now because of the situation. A lot of people still out of work, so forth. So I understand that. Okay, let's go and get into the news. All right. Now, some of this is a little bit old because I should have brought it yesterday, but I just could not post yesterday. Long story. Anyway, so most of it is fairly new, but there may be a couple pieces in here that are not so new, but still pertinent. Okay, Stonewall Jackson, NASCAR was so humiliated by the fake noose incident that they've now released a photo of a completely different noose. Even though there's video footage of that exact garage with a completely different rope, this is just sad. They should be apologizing, not furthering the lie. And of course, yes, they did put up another picture of a completely different noose, and of course this one was an actual noose and not just a garage pull down, and of course the loop was much bigger, so more than just your hand could be strangled. So yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to further the lie. They're not going back, they're not apologizing, they just keep going. It's kind of like a kid when you catch them and you say, no, that's a lie, because I know that you weren't there, or whatever. But the child, instead of just saying, yeah, I'm sorry, I lied, they'll just double down on that lie and keep going and make it so much worse. So yeah, that's exactly what they're doing, because they've got the mentality of children. These people in the mainstream media, especially CNN, they have the mentality of children. All right, now let's look at this. All right, now, as you can see, I tagged this and I said, what the heck? Because what the heck? Now, if you haven't seen this, you need to, and that's why I'm bringing this in, just in case you haven't seen it. But what he says is way out there. And this person, Sass Rabble Rouser, said, WTF did Joe just say? Yeah, well, let's listen to what he has to say. and you tell me what you think.
And Neil Smith, an old butt buddy. Are you here, Neil?
An old what? Let's go back. An old what?
Smith, an old butt buddy. Are you here, Neil?
A what? What did he say?
Butt buddy. Are you here, Neil?
Oh, let's hear that one more time.
Smith, an old butt buddy. Are you here?
An old butt buddy? A butt buddy. That is a homosexual reference. What is going on here? Let's play the thing in its entirety. It's only 7 seconds.
And Neil Smith, an old butt buddy. Are you here, Neil? Neil, I miss you, man. I miss you. And Neil...
I'd be quite concerned if I was Neil Smith that he's calling me a butt buddy. Yeah. And this person says, what did Joe just say? Am I imagining something here, or did Joe Biden just call him his butt buddy? No, you're not imagining it. That's exactly what he said. Yeah, the more he opens that mouth, ... Yeah. I don't know why this hasn't been plastered all over the news, because it's a weird thing to say, a very weird thing to say in front of a crowd, and he's being videotaped. I just can't imagine. But anyway, what do you guys think? My gosh, that is the most mournful meowing I've ever heard. And I think it's Xander, which is new, because Xander doesn't meow very much. All right, I'll stop talking about the cats. Okay, and more on Swampy Joe. This by Kayla Akinani. Excuse me, I was eating that seed bar and stuck in my throat. Swampy Joe says 120 million Americans died of COVID. Lie. And 150 million Americans died of gun violence. Lie. Like there's, 337 million people in the United States? That would be about half of, what he's saying is that basically half of America has died from gun violence and the other half has died of COVID. That's what he's saying. How is that possible? And why isn't he called out on this? I mean, literally, he said 120 million people died of COVID, and 150 million Americans died of gun violence. That doesn't leave a lot of Americans left. And I think we'd notice if all those people were missing, because we would have huge buildings empty. We'd have people not showing up to their job. It would be chaos. But yet, that's what he says. Can't make this stuff up.
Unnecessarily, now we have over 120 million dead from COVID. Unnecessarily, now we have over 120 million dead from COVID. Unnecessarily, now we have over 120.
Yeah, confused Joe Biden falsely claims 120 million Americans died of COVID. And of course, 150 million died of gun violence. I don't think he says that here. Well, he doesn't, but yeah. That's good. That's a good meme. I'm claiming Kenyan citizenship. What's your cover? Dementia. I don't know. If that's just a cover, then really he deserves an Oscar. He really does, because I don't think it's a cover. I think because you can just see him sometimes. He just stops and he loses everything, and it reminds me of Nancy Pelosi. She does the same thing. She just kind of stops and starts playing with her dentures, and yeah, strange. Okay, well, we've got more to get to. Yes, we do. And let's hit on this. Let's see what this is going to bring us. Oh, yes. Washington, D.C. Mayor Bowser Everyone all across the United States now knows and recognizes the plight of Washington, D.C. The plight, you say? The plight. No, haven't heard about the plight of Washington, D.C. What exact plight are they having in Washington, D.C.? I don't know, but let's listen.
We know that everyone all across the United States now knows and recognizes the plight of Washington, D.C. Not only do we not have voting senators and our congresswomen not have the right to vote, the whims of a federal government can encroach upon our even limited autonomy. And it can do so in ways that are threats to all of the American states and all of the American people. We know that
Yeah. And you know why they want Washington to become a state, right? Because then they would get more senators, and of course, it being a Democrat state. It's not a state; it's a district, but it's very, very much Democrat. So it would put more Democrats in the Senate, and might. I'm not sure how many they would have to get to regain power over the Senate. I'm not sure, but that's exactly why they're doing it. They don't care. You think she cares about the people of Washington, D.C.? She doesn't. All right. Excuse me. Let's go back. Okay. And let's go on. Here. And this by Here Kitty Kitty. Fake news outlets such as the New York Times, CNN, ABC, NBC, and the Daily Beast are allowed inside the building. No local news are allowed. Biden's camp bans local media from Pennsylvania event while Biden is speaking. Gee, I wonder why. Well, because he wants people that are sympathetic to his cause and will write positive things no matter what he says and no matter what he does. Local media, on the other hand, is not bought out. They are not considered the propaganda arm of the DNC. So that's exactly why. A local independent journalist would be more likely to speak the truth. So we need to ban them. Now, what kind of a person who's running for president would ban the press of any sort? Why would you do that? You're wanting coverage, right? Doesn't make sense. Unless you think about it, that they just want the people in there that will report positively and cover for him. That's exactly why. And let's go over here. This by Tammy Bruce. Oh, a Michigan city clerk has been charged with altering ballots. Yeah. And, it was the Democrats that said that wasn't a problem. That's never been a problem. Isn't that what they said? A Michigan city clerk has been charged with altering ballots. Funny when you remember that the Democrat Party just 1 month ago, and I don't know what the rest of it is because I just pulled it as a quick headline, but yeah. But really, they were the ones saying, oh, it's not a problem. I don't know why Trump would say that. All right, and let's go to this. All righty. Soros affiliated group is part of the defund police movement. Now, we know that. Even if we didn't know it, we still know it. And here you've got, in a world of 7.8 billion people, it's hard to believe that a few billionaires are so well known for their evil doings, yet smart enough to not get prosecuted. One of them, George Soros, is praised by his far-left supporters and cursed by those fighting to preserve the traditions of our great nation. And from Wikipedia, George Soros is a Hungarian American billionaire and investor investor and philanthropist. As of February 2018, he had a net worth of $8 billion, having donated more than $32 billion to his philanthropic agency, the Open Society Foundations. The Open Society Foundation includes several nonprofits that do the bidding of the protected leadership, one of which is part of the defund police movement. With this amount of funding they have been effective in running large, democratically controlled and bankrupt metro areas into the ground, using a similar deconstruction methodology as Saul Alinsky to convert the communities to Marxism. It requires the poor to turn on the wealthy, the population against the police, and citizens against each other. Only through division can they acquire the control to implement their objections. And from Breitbart, the Soros-affiliated group OCAD has been part of the Defund the Police movement as far back as early 2016, long before the death of George Floyd that brought it to national attention. While many Americans see the current protests and riots as organic reactions to the death of Floyd, many organized groups are seizing on the momentum. This Soros-affiliated group stands for Organized Communities Against Deportation, and OCAD lists on its website the Open Society Foundation as a partner. On February 16th, 2016, OCAD hosted a protest in Chicago, Illinois to defund the police, according to an article posted on the website of Not One More, another anti-deportation organization, itself an offshoot of the larger and more organized anti-deportation group, National Labor Day Organizing Network. And here, this is their Twitter account, OCAD. Activists shout, defund the police, dismantle ICE on intersection of Congress and LaSalle. And we don't need to hear them screaming. Other activist groups participating in the protests were Assata's Daughters, Black Youth Project, 100, Fearless Leading by the Youth, Palestinian Youth in Action, Centro Autonomo, People's Response Team, and the Chicago Religious Leadership Network. How do we defeat this investment against our freedoms? Fix education, remove Marxism, stop immigration, enforce E-Verify, deport all illegal aliens and visa overstays, and criminally prosecute every dirty deed these nonprofits commit. Someday soon, age will overcome this monster, George Soros, and he will then have to give account for his atheistic and hateful actions to his creator, while the world can focus on rebuilding the damage he was able to accomplish. With enough oversight and with our hard work, these groups will fade away into history along with the memory of George Soros. Well, we can only hope that's true. And let's go back. Not there. Come on. All right. And this from Redbird. Joe Tan said, I just got word from a financial agent here in Canada, July 2nd to July 9th. They are to prepare for a financial blackout and had to sign confidentiality form. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it kind of fits within that time frame where so many people are saying, and it has been really, you know how they pre-program it into us by putting it into movies and all that. Well, there is something that is supposed to be happening, I think July 5th, if I'm not mistaken. So who knows? But this person here is saying that there is going to be a financial blackout in Canada. Now, I don't know. I don't know what to think, but I do know that there is a financial reset coming. And let's look at this. Donald J. Trump is responding to Henry Rogers, who said, new Daily Caller reached out to the Biden campaign and asked them if Biden agrees with Democrats who want to tear down statues of George Washington, Grant, Roosevelt, and depictions of Jesus. The campaign was given over 24 hours to respond. They did not. Donald Trump responds, he has no idea. So the answer is yes, that he does support it. Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. Just Donald Trump is a little bit more blunt than most people would or could be. Not that that's a bad thing. Okay, now let's look at this. New York conducting random checks to ensure quarantine compliance, Cuomo says. Well, isn't that special? Okay, New York State will make random checks on people to enforce a 14-day quarantine on travelers coming from states that are infected, hotspots for the coronavirus, Governor Andrew M. Cuomo said Thursday. The quarantine order by New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut is not a blockade or a political decision, but a practical policy to ensure COVID-19 infection rates don't jump again, as they have been soaring in other states, Cuomo said. The federal government at one time threatened to blockade New York, which means you couldn't come in and you couldn't go out, Cuomo told New Day host Allison Camerata. I don't believe that's constitutional, but states do have the authority to regulate their public health. So, yeah, that's the last person I'd want regulating my health. And asked how New York would enforce the mandate, Cuomo said tracers will follow up randomly to ensure visitors are meeting requirements. You fly into New York, we'll have your name, we'll know where you're supposed to be staying. There'll be random checks, Cuomo said. You get pulled over by a police officer and he looks at where your residence is and says, how long have you been there? You get sick and you go to a hospital from out of state and you test positive and you're within the 14 days, you've violated the law. You're going to have a problem. Cuomo said inspectors will be looking randomly at names on the list and following up to make sure visitors are quarantined. If they're not, they will be fined, he said. Visitors need to isolate themselves if they arrive from states registering 10 positives per 100,000 tested on a 7-day rolling average, or with a 10% or higher positivity rate on a 7-day rolling average. States meeting the criteria are Alabama, Arkansas, Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, and Utah. Washington was initially on the list, but state officials in New York and Washington said it was removed after the figures were corrected. Violators can face fines of $2,000 for the first offense, $5,000 for the second offense, and $10,000 if they cause harm. Cuomo said Wednesday, when the quarantine was announced, they should be subjected to a judicial order and mandatory quarantine and be required to pay the cost of the quarantine. I think most people are going to honor it, Cuomo said Thursday. Look, they get fined $10,000 if they cause harm. Well, maybe he should have to pay $10,000 for every elderly person that died because of his policies. That's what I'm thinking. Camerata asked Cuomo about the politics behind the decision, noting Cuomo, a Democrat, had been among those outspoken when Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a Republican, in March announced a quarantine on New Yorkers traveling there. Camerata showed a video clip of DeSantis saying everyone in the New York media was blowing a gasket. How can you do this? And saying he had made the right decision. I say to them, look at the numbers. Cuomo said, you played politics with this virus and you lost. You told the people of your state, you told the people of this country, White House, don't worry about it, just open up, go about your business. This is all Democratic hyperbole. So anyway, I'm not going to read the rest of that, but I think we've read enough to get the gist. And we've got lots more to go through, so I want to get through as much as I can. Now, all right, let's look at this. Nets conceal Biden's lie. Over 120 million Americans are dead from COVID. Now, as a campaign event Thursday, former Vice President and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden misled the public about how many Americans had died from the coronavirus, claiming over 120 million dead from COVID. In reality, there have been over 120,000 Americans killed by the virus, which meant Biden's claim was 1,000 times larger. Because he said there have been over 120 thousand, and he probably meant to say thousand and said million. That's gross miscalculation, went completely unreported by ABC, CBS, and NBC's evening newscasts, which all boasted about Biden calling Trump a child. On top of all that, they completely ignored findings from the Washington Free Beacon that discovered that Biden Cancer Initiative spent 65% of its funding on staff and executive salaries instead of fighting cancer. Ooh, surprise. CBS Evening News anchor Norah O'Donnell began their segment by whining about President Trump suggesting the number of COVID cases was rising due to more testing, but experts say that claim is misleading, she huffed, oblivious to the irony that Biden was misleading people too, and on the campaign trail, Joe Biden and the president had failed the American people and is acting like a child. Or Joe Biden said, okay, and on the campaign trail, Joe Biden said the president had failed the American people and is acting like a child. Right. He's one to talk. Talking about the hair on his legs and people rubbing the hair on his legs and talking about, was it corn pop? I think it was corn pop. Corn pop. Oh my gosh. Anyway, during the CBS report, White House correspondent Paula Reed echoed O'Donnell's cheering. The former vice president, campaigning in Pennsylvania, slammed the president for being more concerned about himself than the average American, she said. For NBC Nightly News, White House correspondent Jeff Bennett teed up a soundbite of Biden by saying, Joe Biden tonight taking aim at President Trump's handling of the coronavirus crisis. He later noted that the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee campaigning in Pennsylvania boasted by new polling from the New York Times showing him now leading in 6 battleground states that were key to President Trump's 2016 victory. And if you believe that, well, you shouldn't believe it. ABC's congressional correspondent Mary Bruce, fond for Biden's harshest language yet against Trump. Bruce, the former vice president, ripped into Trump for complaining that more testing reveals a higher infection rate. Trump, here's what I say. Testing is a double-edged sword. Which it is. As for what the networks refused to cover, the Free Beacon's Joe Schaafstall reported nearly 2/3 of the money the Biden Cancer Initiative spent since its founding in 2017 went toward staff compensation and 6-figure salaries for top executives. The group spent far less on efforts to eradicate cancer. According to Schaafstall's report, the Biden Cancer Initiative was only around for 2 years, and $3 million out of the $4.8 million they raised in that time went to salaries, compensation, and benefits. This is well above the 25% charity watchdog's recommended nonprofit spend on administrative overhead and fundraising costs combined, he noted. So Biden's charity was paying its executives 65% of their fundraising, and he thought 36% of the U.S. was wiped out by the coronavirus. And this was who the media were supporting for president in 2020. The network's silence was sponsored by Geico on ABC, ADT on CBS, and Depend on NBC. Their contact information is linked. The transcripts are below. Click expand to read. Okay, well, we're not going to get into all that, and I have no intention of writing to those companies. They can support who they want. All right. Biden would never, ever, ever be my choice, even if he had a full, even if he was in control of all his faculties. I still wouldn't vote for him because he's crooked. Now, this Andy Ngo, of course, has been reporting from Chaz or CHOP or whatever you want to call it. And of course, it says Antifa militants occupied an attempted autonomous zone around the Portland Police North Precinct last night. That's what they were wanting to do, is to set up another zone at the North Precinct. They barricaded off the area with stolen property. They sprayed extremist messages on the building calling for police to be murdered. And let's take a look at this. Unreal. The only good cop is a dead one. That is spray painted on the building. They make quite the mess, don't they? And there's all their graffiti. Andy No reporting on this. All right, well, let's go back because we have more from him. And let's go to this one. Okay. He said overnight, Antifa, and this was on June, no, this was on, no, it couldn't have been the 26th. Yes, it was the 26th. Today's the 27th. So yes, this was from yesterday. Overnight, Antifa rioters attacked the Portland Police North Precinct, then started large fires in the street. They said they were doing it for the Black Lives Matter cause. Others looted in the area. It took many hours before police managed to disperse the violent mob of a couple hundred. Let's look at this. There's obviously the site of one fire. That looks like hair. You know what we just saw there? Doesn't that look like hair? Sure does to me. Who knows, though? You could have ripped somebody's hair out. I don't know. But anyway, let's go back, and we have one more from Mr. No. And he says North Portland looks like a war zone right now. Antifa militants tried to establish an autonomous zone outside the Portland Police North Precinct. They then started fires in the street. Okay, and now it's just repeating, but it just gives you an idea of what's happening there, because we're really not getting much in the way of news about, you know, Chaz, Chop, whatever. All right, let's go back and see what other trouble we can get into. Now, this from CNN, and I only do this because I think this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Well, maybe not the most ridiculous, but it's up there. And it says, the Houston Association of Realtors, heads up. Heather H. in Houston, Triple H, heads up. The Houston Association of Realtors will use primary to describe bedrooms and bathrooms on its listing service instead of master. Amid increasing calls for racial justice, such wording has fallen out of favor due to an association with slavery. Well, I guess they need to do away with master keys, too. Can't have a master key, can you? Should be primary key, I guess. You know, I just can't imagine, you know, master bedroom has been in use forever. So I just don't get it. I mean, nobody calls their master bedroom. This is the primary room. I don't know. I just wanted to highlight the ridiculousness of it all. And there's so many other ways in which master is used in the English language, like master key. what do you do with all that? I mean, it's getting ridiculous. I mean, well, it's past ridiculous at this point. All right, now let's look at this. By the Daily Mail. This shouldn't surprise anyone. Minneapolis police. Oh, come on, man. I hate this site. Just because of all the advertising, and it's ridiculous. Can't even read the articles. Minneapolis City Council unanimously approves amendment to city charter. City charter requires that there be a police force to maintain public safety. Amendment calls for Department of Community Safety and Violence Prevention. New department would offer a holistic, public health-oriented approach. Agency head will have no non-law enforcement experience in community safety, or the agency head will have non-law enforcement experience in community safety. 5 city council members are trying to jam through amendment quickly, but they hope to get amendment on ballot in November so city residents can vote. But Mayor Jacob Frey said he is opposed to abolishing the police department. If Frey vetoes the amendment, the city council could then override his veto. So there you go. That's what they want in Minneapolis, and I am so glad I don't live in that city. I feel bad for those of you who might. I mean, I just say might because we might not have any listeners from Minneapolis, but we probably do. So anyway, I'm not going to get into all that because I hate going to the Daily Mail because of all the advertising. It drives me insane. And, you know, I'd like to give them a piece of my mind, but I need all the pieces for myself. Don't want to be given any more of my mind away. All right, let's look at this. Yeah, if you're not completely, if your jaw doesn't drop over this, then I don't know what would make your jaw drop. Because this, if I didn't know this was real, I wouldn't believe it. If someone had just posted this and without the video, I wouldn't have believed it. Says just a Florida City Council invoking Satan at the opening of their session. Yeah, really. Let's take a listen.
Of allegiance led by Vice Mayor Scott Maxwell.
Some people left.
Duly noted. Our collective atheism, which is to say loving empathy, scientific evidence, and critical thinking, leads us to believe that we can create a better, more equal community without religious divisions. May we pray together.
Who's he praying
Mother
to?
Earth, we
Oh,
gather
Father
today
Earth.
in your redeeming and glorious presence to invoke your eternal guidance in the universe, the original creator of all things. May the efforts of this council blend the righteousness of Allah with the all-knowing wisdom of Satan.
All-knowing wisdom of Satan.
The great God of justice, grant us strength tonight. Jesus,
Just gonna go back.
So blend the righteousness of all, the original creator of all things.
Now pay attention here.
May the efforts of this council blend the righteousness of Allah with the all-knowing wisdom of Satan. May Zeus, the great God of justice, grant us strength tonight. Jesus might forgive our shortcomings, while Buddha enlightens us through his divine affection. We praise you, Krishna, for the sanguine sacrifice that freed us all. After all, if Almighty Thor is with us, who can ever be against us? And finally, for the bounty of logic, reason, and science, we simply thank the atheists, agnostics, humanists, who now account for 1 in 5 Americans, and growing rapidly. In closing, Let us, above all, love one another, not to obtain mythical rewards for ourselves now, hereafter, or based on superstitious threats of eternal damnation, but rather embrace secular-based principles of morality and do good for goodness sake. And so we pray, so what? Thank you, guys.
Yeah. That's hard to believe, isn't it? And yet, it's, in some ways, it's not hard to believe. This is where we're at. Okay, and let's go on here. I've got a few more minutes. All right, Maria Montserrat Alvarado, I can't even pronounce her name, but anyway, this is what she has to say. Breaking: a federal judge in New York has ruled that Mayor Bill de Blasio and Governor Andrew Cuomo have violated the Constitution by discriminating against religious groups, striking down COVID lockdown orders that prevented outdoor and indoor religious activities. So that's good news that they've struck that down, but it means that they were violating the rights of the citizens by preventing them from meeting to engage in religious activities. And up here, we're still banned. The churches cannot open up here. So the churches are still closed, even though the stores are open. Now, how does that make sense? Someone please tell me. It doesn't. So, yeah, makes me very angry. It just doesn't make sense. How can you let the stores open and not the churches? You know, they can have more than one service even and keep people spaced out, but let them open. Anyway, and look at this. This is interesting. This is from Sarah Carter. Again, you know, the Democrats making us believe that voter fraud is, you know, doesn't occur. But New Jersey politician and 3 others charged with voter fraud in mail-in election. Oh, mail-in election. Yeah. The New Jersey Attorney General's office announced voter fraud charges Wednesday against 4 individuals, including a city councilman and an elected city councilman, according to a press release. Paterson City Councilman Michael Jackson, Councilman-elect Alex Mendez, and 2 other men are alleged to have exploited the mail-in voting process in the May 12th special election in Paterson, New Jersey. The investigation was opened when U.S. Postal Inspection Service found hundreds of mail-in ballots stuffed in a single mailbox in Paterson and a number of additional ballots in a mailbox in Haledon. Today's charges send a clear message. If you try to tamper with an election in New Jersey, we will find you and we will hold you accountable, said Attorney General Gruel. We will not allow a small number of criminals to undermine the public confidence in our democratic process. Jackson, who represented the city's first ward and is vice president of the city council, is alleged to have solicited voters to hand over their ballots and is alleged to have turned in ballots without being the authorization bearer to do so. His charges include election fraud, fraud in casting mail-in vote, unauthorized possession of ballots, false registration or transfer, tampering with public records, and falsifying or tampering with records. The residents of New Jersey have a right to free and fair elections, and we will ensure that happens, said OPIA Director Thomas Eicher. Our office's criminal investigators complement a number of other safeguards that New Jersey has implemented to ensure the integrity of our elections. So, not going to read all the rest of that. And it says, rigged 2020 election. This is a tweet by Donald Trump. Millions of mail-in ballots will be printed by foreign countries and others. It will be the scandal of our times. So here, essentially, he's prophesying based on not true prophecy, but he's literally telling people what's going to happen. That's what they're going to try. That's what's next. That's what's up their sleeve. So, you know, and all these people saying, oh, you know, all these mail-in ballot, oh, it's completely safe. No, there's no fraud. Really? All right. Let's come back. And let's listen to, let's look at this. Oh, he's a disaster. Joe Biden, I will force Americans to wear masks in public. Okay, is that supposed to make people vote for him? Really? Not so much. Former Vice President Joe Biden said Thursday he would compel Americans to wear masks in public if elected president. In an interview with Pittsburgh CBS affiliate KDKA, Biden said that he would use federal power to mandate masks. Question: I know you have been critical of the president's handling of the pandemic in the past, but let's look ahead. If you became president tomorrow, what would you do differently regarding the pandemic and getting these surging cases now under control? Biden: I would go back to making sure that everybody had masks, that you had PPE, personal protective equipment, lined up. We'd have been making sure we stockpile all the things that we need that we don't have now. The one thing we do know, these masks make a gigantic difference. No, they don't. I would insist that everybody out in public be wearing that mask. Anyone to reopen would have to make sure that they walked in their business that they had masks. Could you use federal, and question, could you use the federal leverage to mandate that though? Biden: yes. Question: would you? Biden: yes, I would. From an executive standpoint, yes, I would. Question: so you would, in effect, mandate the wearing of masks? Biden: I would do everything possible to make it required that people had to wear masks in public. Biden fumbled with his mask throughout the interview and has struggled with his own mask at previous events. Biden went on to say that he would take off his mask when taking the oath of office if he won the election. Yeah. Right. He's going to say whatever he thinks will get him elected, but if he thinks that's going to get him elected, like, really? Don't think so. All right. And going to stop soon, but and Donald J. Trump wrote, I was going to go to Bedminster, New Jersey this weekend, but wanted to stay in Washington, D.C. to make sure law and order is enforced. The arsonists, anarchists, looters, and agitators have been largely stopped. So that is good news, and I like his approach. Law and order, that's what we need, because society would completely break down without the police. It would be like that movie Purge, or what was that movie that, see, I don't watch stuff like that, but there's some movie where they were given one night, I don't know if it was a year or one night to go out, and there was no police, nobody would stop them, and they wouldn't be held accountable. And what do you think happened? And that's exactly true. That's what would happen, because there's a lot of people like you and I, we don't need somebody standing over us to do the right thing, but there's a lot of people that do. And if the police weren't present, they would go out and they'd loot wherever they could, because they wouldn't get caught. There's no police. So that's exactly what they do. All right. And this is fascinating. Now, some of you guys out there, or ladies, know if this is true or not, but I want to know. I'm throwing this out there because I found this and I don't know. It says, know what else wearing a mask does? Anyone? Removes your conceal carry ability. That's right. It's in the rules. CCW licensees are not allowed to wear face coverings while carrying. Now let that sink in. Is that true, guys? I don't know. But it's interesting. All right, and let's look at this. Yeah, this is priceless. Priceless. Hey, this is worth the price of admission right here. All right. No, there's no price for admission, just in case somebody's out there going, what? Yeah. Let's listen to this. It's priceless. Let's listen to this guy.
So I come in this morning and we're informed there's going to be a protest to defund the police. Well, that's fine. I like protests. Except for they requested a police presence, for their safety at the defund police event. I shit you not. So I come
now, isn't that wild? These people that are yelling, F the police, and they want to defund the police and saying, wanting to kill cops and everything else. And they're having a protest, but they request a police presence for their protection. Duh. Can you believe that? I mean, I can believe it because, well, not the brightest people on the planet, but I liked it. I like this guy. All right, let's go back now. We were able to cover quite a bit, really, today. So hang on here. I want you guys to see this for sure. This is from Stephen Smith, a Republican from Georgia. He says, we demand gender justice. Now, I think he's tongue-in-cheek here because he says Bart is voiced by a woman. We demand gender justice. And it says, he's responding to this New York Post article, The Simpsons will no longer have white actors voice non-white characters. Now, isn't that interesting? So if there's a black character or, not necessarily even black, whatever race, they have to be voiced by someone of that race. And so this guy says, well, Bart is voiced by a woman. We demand gender justice. And I love that because it's very tongue-in-cheek. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if you're going to go that far. All right. And this. And we are getting to the end. I can't believe I actually made it through all that news. Huh. And now it says that word is not... Oh, here we go. I guess I had to speak nicely to it and buy it dinner. All right. Okay, hang on here. I hope they'll let us see this. World record lighting mega flash in South America. It was 440 miles long, and it's been confirmed by scientists. It was some big mega flash. What do you bet it wasn't natural? Yeah, well, we know that they're messing with our atmosphere, our weather, everything. So I thought that was fascinating. Another record-setting flash lasting 16.73 seconds. Now, that's weird in itself. A lightning flash lasting that long lasted 16.73 seconds in Argentina, was also certified by the World Meteorological oh, I can't say it. I'm sorry. I just, like I've explained, in case there's anybody new listening, I used to, when I was very young, have a speech impediment, and I worked hard to overcome that. And every once in a while, I get tongue-tied. Meteorological. I still didn't say it right. Okay, anyway, I'm going to stop trying. This is the strike. Now, that's bizarre, isn't it? Very bizarre. A look at the lightning mega flash and satellite image of the storm that produced the world's longest certified lightning discharge. And yeah, so that one was October 31st, 2018. But the one that we're discussing here just happened. It just happened. So And let's come down to see if we, can you imagine a lightning flash that spans the distance from Washington, D.C. to Boston? Or how about a channel of electricity that crawls along storm clouds for longer than the time it takes to sit through a television commercial? Examples of lightning this extreme were confirmed Thursday by the World Meteorological, I said it, organization, which declared a pair of mega flashes in South America as world record setters. So many strange things happening. Very strange things happening all over the world. Locust infestations, earthquakes. My gosh, earthquakes are off the chart. Strange lightning, strange storms, a lot of stuff. The largest lightning discharge in recorded history occurred on, okay, so that strike happened, but the biggest one was on October 31st, 2018 in southern Brazil. Although the flash stretched from eastern Argentina all the way to the Atlantic, the complex spider-like discharge spanned a horizontal distance of roughly 440 miles, the exact distance between Chicago and Toronto, or Dallas to Memphis. Isn't that interesting? I just find that fascinating. Okay, well, that's enough of that. Now I have one more here, and I don't know what this is, but let's take a boo at it. Okay. I hope, okay. It says, from an anon on Q Research. This is absolutely terrifying. This needs to be brought out into the sunlight. Please retweet. Now, what is this? Well, I'll read it to you. And it says, Q, I hope you see this, and Anons, well, the Anons did see it. I have to get this off my chest. I am a healthcare worker with some oversight of 2 nursing homes in Maryland. An associate of one of the nursing homes called me one day to let me know she was contacted by Governor Larry Hogan's COVID task force team and that mandatory testing for all patients and staff was required and wanted to set up a time to come test everyone. My associate told the gentleman on the phone that we have had no cases and it wasn't necessary to come test. The man on the phone snickered and said, "You don't have it yet, but you will." She set up the time for testing, much to her dismay. She immediately called to relay this information about her conversation. Because I was already seeing a pattern of the spread of COVID based on testing, I told her not to let them in the facility. What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay. She immediately called to relay this information about her conversation because I was already seeing a pattern of the spread of COVID based on testing. I told her not to let them in the facility, but we were powerless as they sent the National Guard. We did the testing and had multiple positives of patients and staff right off the bat, despite having zero cases or sick patients prior to that. Within days, patients were getting severely sick and dying, practically wiped out one whole unit in our facility. The almost identical situation happened at my other facility. 0 cases, mandatory testing, unexpected positives, people dying. Anons and Q, I am fairly confident at this point that the tests are infecting the people. Remember Governor Hogan hid the tests he obtained from South Korea away from the president? Also, who are the loudest voices that scream for more testing? Something to think about. Now, I believe that, and I've believed that for a long time, that it's the test, and we've already heard this on the news, that there were tests from China that were infected with the virus. Well, I think that there might be more than that. I think that they may be intentionally giving it to people. That's why there's testing set up in this area, but I won't go. I mean, if I was experiencing any symptoms, I might, but yeah, I won't go because it seems to me that people get tested and then they get sick. So I don't know, but I'm throwing that out there for you guys because it is important, and it's important to pay attention to what's happening. Okay, well, I think I'm going to call it a night. It's 11:58 Eastern time. 11:59. So probably by the time I get this uploaded, it will be tomorrow, because not much time left tonight. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening, and I'm hoping that tomorrow's a better hair day. Really, this is just awful, but I had my hair up because it was hot, and that's probably what did it. But it wasn't worth postponing a show over, because that would just be narcissistic. So anyway, you guys, thank you so much, and please consider supporting the channel if you enjoy it, through Patreon or Coffee or anyway. So thank you so much. I will see you guys possibly tomorrow. And you have a great night. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed, and keep seeking truth. Good night, guys.